Good morning, Gary. Welcome to my podcast, One for the Road. And this is the last episode in the season. I've really enjoyed this season. It's been doing brilliantly. It's been in the top 10 in the Apple charts every week. And I'm sure your episode will be right up there as well. Because I've listened to your episodes on other accounts before, and you're really brutally honest about your relationship with alcohol. And, a bit like myself, what you see is what you get. And that's what I love about you. And I'm really excited to hear your story, mate. How you doing?
I'm well. I'm really well, thanks. Excited as well. I've been seen your account for a long time, and you're kind of like one of the leading lights, aren't you? So it's nice to get a chance to chat. And I think you're right. We are quite similar in our histories and
Yeah,
bluntness.
yeah. And I've heard you describe how you were with booze as well, and pretty manic. So we can get into that. But let's start in the beginning, mate. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like?
My childhood was the polar opposite to what became my adulthood. It was like idyllic, um, leafy suburbia, only child, loving parents, got on great with both of them. And I was born, my parents are Scottish. I was born in Scotland and we moved to Cheshire when I was 5. And I grew up in quite a famous town, actually, well, village, Alderley Edge. It's where all the footballers live in Cheshire. So you can imagine the kind of upbringing, private boys' school. Yeah, on paper, everything going for me. But then something happened and I got into drinking, I would say about into it properly, like house parties at about 15. But my childhood was just really lovely.
And what was that, do you think? Because it's normally around 14, 15, isn't it? Is it because we changed, don't we, from being a boy to a man, and then there's that bit in between that we haven't got a clue who we are and what we look like as well. We can look a bit weird, can't we? And it's about fitting in, and do the girls like us, and do your mates think you're a bit of a nerd and whatnot? And it's quite often we drink to relieve that anxiety, don't we? To fit in.
Yeah, do you know, I was a confident kid, and then when I got to about drinking parties and drinking age, I realized I was hyper confident and hyper, sound like a wanker saying it, but I'm very outgoing, extrovert personality. And but deep down inside, there was something there was, like you say, there was a gap of growing up. It took me ages to become a man because I don't think between the ages of like 15 and like 21, I dealt with anything. I just instantly fell in love with drinking, and I didn't really have the time to dedicate time to maturing or analyzing what it was to mature. So it was quite quickly taken out of my hands, really, the process of maturing. And yeah, I was just straight away, I was a fucking head case, really, immediately with it.
Yeah. Same here. Honestly, I took to it like a duck and water. Do you know what I mean? It's like as soon as I had that first drink, it was like that magic solution.
Hmm.
I don't think it would have mattered what age I would have been to have felt that emotion. It just clicked in place.
Yeah.
And that's, how it appears for you. So what did it look like then you're drinking from the off?
I remember vividly the first time I drank a can of beer was the opening night of the National Lottery with Noel Edmonds. And I checked actually not too long ago. That was November 94. So I'd have been just 14. And I can't remember how I got it or if my parents were like, here's a beer, controlled environment, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember. But I remember when it finished that I felt great. And when I asked for another one and they said no, I was gutted. So you could also almost say that instantly I was in some way addicted to it. I just thought, oh, this is woozy. And I don't know, it was instant. And then before I knew it, I was 16, 17. And I was, even at 17, 18, I was at a house party. I'd wake up in the morning and drink after, while everyone else was, carnage, cabbaged on the sofa. And I just, even at that age, breakfast drinking, no problem. I
Wow.
don't know if you feel like this, but I felt like I had a chemical disposition to love it.
Yeah. I mean, I never really got to the breakfast drinking, but I it was almost like it was mapped in my DNA that as soon as it was introduced, it just worked. Like it felt like the missing piece for me at the time. Well, for 40 years actually at the time, it's
Yeah.
rubbish. But once I had it, I I wanted it all the time. And I was never ever born to be a moderator. I was, it's progressive as well, wasn't it? So
Mhm.
I remember when I was 14, 15, 16, the ceiling spinning round, but after that, it never spun around because I got used to it. And then it just progressed till the hell that most people know, the litre of vodka a night. But
Yeah.
so 15 to 21, did you go to uni?
I did, but I had a couple of things happen. Well, one particular thing at 15 really changed, I would say, the course of my young life. I had really bad acne and I got prescribed, I mean, awful to the point where I couldn't lie down on my back. And I got prescribed a really intense drug called Roaccutane. And that changed me overnight. I swear. I mean, it did a good job on the skin condition, but it actually got taken off the market, I think. Or there was a huge controversy around it because children, like teenagers, were committing suicide and trying to take their own lives because of it, because of the side effects. And that just changed me dramatically. So suddenly I'm like 16, 17, trying to get ready for my A levels because I had aspirations to go to uni, and I did. But even at that age, with that pill and the introduction of alcohol, all my kind of nice little life and leafy suburbia just went off the rails very quickly. Um, and so in sixth form, when I was doing my A levels, I was already feeling the shame on a Monday morning because of things I'd done and said at house parties. And then I got to uni the week of my 19th birthday, and I never returned really. And I was just uncontrollable for another 14 years, no off switch at all. Because with the injection of cash and the freedom, it was on the cards to be a disaster really.
Mm.
And uni was, I'm the type of person, if I look back at things, I can only remember the good. I'm quite a positive, optimistic person, and I look back at the fond memories of uni. But if I really think about it, I was miserable as sin from the off, and I just never gave myself any chance to recover or grow up.
Did your mate say anything to you at the time? Because I know uni is pretty mad anyway, isn't it, for drinking and that with a student bar and that. But did they kind of see something different in you?
I mean, the majority, all the people I hung out with were, recreational drug users, absolute pissheads. I just gravitated to that kind of person because I was one. And I don't think at the beginning, but then I think in the second and third years, my mates that really knew me really started to see it unravel. And at night, on a night out when I get home and I've been chucked out of another place and I have a bit of a breakdown, they can see something's not right here. But even at uni, I'd get up on a Monday and, oh, there's a can of Foster's in the fridge, I'll just have that, at 8:30. So it became so normalized that I think people just thought I was a nutter. I don't think back then as well. I went to uni in 99. People weren't telling 20-year-olds that they were alcoholics. I think that the perception of an alcoholic back then, and probably still to a degree now, was, oh, you're not a down and out bum drinking out of a brown paper bag in the morning. So I think it was just like, yeah, he's a nutter when he's pissed.
Yeah, and it's what we all did as well, wasn't it? You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
it was almost like I remember getting in the van quite often. Oh my God, I'm hanging. Oh my God, you've seen what I did last night, how much I had to drink. And it was almost like champing in it all the time, day after day after day. And what a heavyweight I am. And I remember going to a job that was a massive job, carpet job in Sutton. And I said to my mate, right, we're not out tonight. We've got a big day. And he said, oh, let's go out for a couple. Now,
Mm.
already, you know what that means, right?
Yeah.
Ended up coming in from a club at 3:30 in the morning, absolutely bollocks, right? And we had to meet the MD at, I think, 6:30. And it was a whole massive ground floor office with about 50 computers, traps in the floor for wires, and we had to rip up all the old and that. And I remember driving there thinking, what have I done? And
Mm.
it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. But I was back in the pub at 5, like
Of
we'd,
course.
you
Yeah.
know, like
Because he spent that whole day doing that job, like secretly desperate to get to the pub. No,
yeah,
because I don't know about you, but I said recently on the podcast I do with my friend Craig, I tried to fill 15-minute voids where alcohol wasn't there. I was just constantly searching for it. 15 minutes was too long to not have a drink, Or I get off the train after work and it's a 15-minute walk home. I need a drink for that.
Yeah.
So, like those days that you're describing, even though it's caused this massive drama in your life, the only thing you can think about is the next one. So it's not even the drinking, is it? It's the recovering from, it's the thinking about, it's the obsessing over, it's the stress you put yourself under, knowing you need to quit. It's just like
The
all
whole thing's
encompassing.
a full-time job, isn't it?
Absolutely. No chance of progression or growth in any facet of your life if you're like that. There's no chance.
No, and it's, I suppose for people who aren't like that, it's about identifying at what point it starts to become like that. If you're beginning to think about, shall I have a drink tonight or not? That these are real good signs to look out for, rather than, oh, well, I've had too much of the weekend, I'm not going to drink in a week, and it don't bother you.
Yeah.
So for me, every day it bothered me. I'd even play football until 11 o'clock at night and have an hour before midnight. These weird rules we create for ourselves, these boundaries. Yeah. Right, I've got an hour to get pissed, right? But I would never drink past 12 because it meant I was a morning drinker in my head. Weird mindset that I had. But I also couldn't even think, oh, well, at least I've had a day without it, because it was almost felt wrong to have a day without it. Like I was breaking my streak of drinking every day, which I was proud of, which now is ludicrous. But I kind of got stuck in that mindset.
Yeah, I think your 20s are the time where you just brag about how tough you are. And that facade, you end up feeling it's more important to keep up that facade than it is to sort your life out. Which again is torture. It's just all torture, top to bottom. There's nothing pleasurable about it. And it might look fun to people, because when people can handle their booze, I think people think, oh, lucky sod, look at him. He can just go out and get smashed and be fine the next day. But, nobody sees you in bed at 7 a.m. at your lowest.
Yeah.
And you just got to put a brave face on it and get on it again. It's pathetic, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's probably thousands of people identifying to that facade we put on, like that. It was always 3 a.m. for me, because I'd pass out, because I was like an indoor drinker. I stopped socializing. I would pass out by 9 and wake up by 3, and it's all that shame and regret and remorse and self-loathing, and and then you get in the van in the morning, and by 2 o'clock you're back to normal. Right, I'll be finished in 2 hours. Off to bloody Tesco's to buy another litre and a couple of Stellas. Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, because it's so easy. How easy is that?
It is, mate. What period of your life did you start to realise actually it's really dysfunctional for you?
My first year at uni, definitely.
Oh, so quite young then.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I even remember in sixth form, actually, college, whatever you want to call it, one night in the park, sitting on a bench with my mate, and I told him that I thought I had a problem with alcohol, and I must have been 17. And he listened to me. He wasn't dismissive. He obviously saw something in me, even at that age, a good mate. So I identified it as an issue then. But at university, I just had no control over it whatsoever. I look back now and think if I'd have reached out and got support, I would have been able to maybe get a grip on it. But I think I was destined for my 20s I just feel like I was the kind of person, the only way I was ever going to get better was if I really, really put my foot to the floor and wrecked everything. I just couldn't. It wasn't rock bottom. It was fucked when I stopped drinking, but the last weekend. But I just wanted to destroy myself, it felt like, early on.
It's interesting to say about rock bottom as well, because how do you define that? You know what I mean? For me, I had so many rock bottoms that I bounced back from, and most people know my Eastbourne one. Yet I drank for another 8-9 months after that, and that was a hideous rock bottom. Um, but I think for me, it it was the sort of catalogue of disasters that mounted up, and in the end, I got to a point that I thought I just literally cannot do this anymore. It, that's how I felt at the end.
Hmm. Same, same.
Yeah.
I gave up. I quit and I gave up at the same time almost. I felt like I had an epiphany on the last date that I drank, and I knew deep down that if this carried on, it would kill me really quite soon. And it was just amazing that you'll probably relate to this. If you were a bit of a live wire when drunk, I'm amazed I didn't get killed
Mm.
or hit by a bus or you know, I was the one that got punched and my head hit the curb and I never recovered from it. I was like bang on for that, something like that to happen to. I'm amazed that I never encountered really serious injury and, more, the deepest lows I somehow managed to avoid.
Yeah, it proves how resilient we are as well. Because the scrapes I've got myself out of, I was
Mm.
out in Spain on holiday with some mates, and I crossed this dual carriageway, but I forgot the cars went the other way.
Yeah.
Things like that. I was looking the wrong way. Um, so how old were you, mate, when it got completely out of control, and what happened for you to stop? Did you stop first time, or did you have a few?
Do you know what? I never really, I think there was a few months period when I was about 28, 9, where I tried to get fit and I was seeing a woman and I knew that if she knew what I was really like, I wouldn't be with her anymore. So I had that kind of dry drunk vibe for a few months. I think that was the only time I really tried. So I moved to Spain when I was 31 with my partner. It's a long story actually, but I'll condense it. And we ran away basically to Spain. My life was fucked here, and I was 31. We went to Spain, and I became a teacher at a private university. I don't know how I blagged the job. I got it on, I don't know, charm and a wink. And I loved that. But her and I broke up a year into us being there, and I just went, and it was my fault. And I just went off the rails for another 9 months. Um, she went back to England, and subsequently we've gotten back together, and I'm back with her now, and she's the mother of my daughter. So there is redemption out there if you're listening. But yeah, so at 33, I moved to Seville, and I just drank myself into a stupor for 9 months, basically, to kind of cope with losing the love of my life. And I was drinking. That I was drinking. That was me. Do you know? I had nothing else, nothing at all. And I moved to Seville from Valencia, and in the first 4 months of living there, I ostracized. They just nobody wanted to hang around with me after 2 or 3 months. All these new people in my life, and I went to Granada, beautiful city in south of Spain, for a weekend with my pal to see my pal, with my flatmates. And by the first night, I annoyed them all so much they didn't want to see me. And then it culminated a weekend of heavy drug taking, drinking. And on the Monday morning, I woke up broke, hanging. My mate had gone to work, whose house I was sleeping in, and I took 2 cans out of his fridge and I tried to walk back to my hostel because I was going to go home that day, and I ended up lost, no phone battery, no money, and my flip flop broke.
Oh my God.
So I was literally in a city I'd never been in my life. I had no friends that wanted to be near me. I had no way of contacting anyone. I had no money, and I couldn't even walk properly because the terrain was vicious, and that was me done. I found my way into town, and I stood on by the river, which is a really significant thoroughfare for people. And my mate that I'd come with that didn't want to look me in the eye saw me, gave me $50. I charged my phone, and I went home, and that was the Monday night. And on the way home, I drank 2 cans on the train, and I woke up on the Tuesday and decided that was it, and I've not had a drink since.
Oh, amazing.
Because I didn't have anything. I had my parents that loved me in England. I had no friends really. I'd lost contact because I got ADHD, so I got that kind of. I don't know if it's like if you're not in my life right now, I don't think about you, so I can't contact you. So I'd left England, and I just didn't really maintain much contact with friends back home, and I'd ostracized all my friends in Spain, and my parents were in another country. So I was like, oh fuck, I'm in another country, and I've got to do it all on my own. and I did.
And
How it
that was,
happened, how I did it, I'll never know, but I did.
well, how did you do it? Was it willpower or?
People talk about willpower. They say it's dangerous saying it's not only about willpower, but it's a lot about willpower because if you don't have any, you'll never get sober. How did I do it? I woke up on the Tuesday morning and I rang AA and they said, "You've just missed a meeting, son. There's one on Saturday." And I found an English speaking AA on the street parallel to mine in Spain. So it was meant to be. And I went there on the Saturday and I was just, the first 3 or 4 days was just with the withdrawals. It was just sheer grit and determination. Nothing else. Nothing else. I was just sick of my life. And I thought, I have to try. Because I knew I could feel my body failing me as well. I knew if I'd carried on like another 3 or 4 years, I'd be in serious trouble. You know, because if you drink, if I was awake, I was drinking. So what did I do? I went to AA on the Saturday and I did AA for about 10 weeks. And that galvanized me. It just gave me people because I'd never talked about it.
Mm.
I'd never admitted it. I'd never accepted it. I'd never been honest about it. And suddenly, twice a week, I was able to do that with people that understood. And the release was, fuck me. On the Saturday when I came out, everybody went for a coffee and then I went and sat on a little bench. I just bawled my eyes out because it was 15 years of just addiction coming out of me, really. And how did I do it? I did it by the minute, Dave, to be honest. The first sort of 2 or 3 months, because I didn't have like cravings here and there. It was just one craving. And I wasn't working for the first 6 weeks. So I had time to initiate habits like walking up, out, fresh air, meditating, which I incorporated because someone recommended it at AA. And I just slowly started to incorporate good habits. And I just kept telling myself at every turn, you can't fucking drink. And I managed to get that first 4 weeks of physical hell out of my system. And then I just had a bit more clarity to think. And I thought, hold on a minute, I'm not happy in this place. I'm going to do something about it. And I asked for a transfer to Tenerife. And they gave me that because it was kind of common knowledge that I was trying to get sober. And I was like, I need to get out of this city. I need to like a fresh start. And they gave it me. And from Tenerife, with the air and the palm trees and just the vibe and the slowed down energy, really, really helped me. So I moved there when I was 5 months sober, but the first 5 months in Seville was just brutal every day, misery. But like as well at the same time, you'll relate to this because it's hard. Obviously, the first few months is, or in my case, I felt like it took me 2 years to really sort my life out, minimum. But I could see the progress. Even after a week, I was like, I've probably lost about 5 pounds.
Mm.
Oh, I've slept better, come the third week. And all these tiny little things collectively were giving me enough belief and hope that maybe I could do it. And it stuck.
So, well, is it 11 years this year?
It will be, yeah, April. Yeah.
How does that feel?
um, it's really weird actually, because I talk about alcohol every day. I think about content every day. I talk to alcoholics every day, and I never think about drinking ever. It doesn't even enter my head. So how does it feel? I feel triumphant. I'm
Mm.
almost glad that my life panned out the way it did,
Mm.
because now I feel kind of indestructible mentally. I mean, I still have my moments, and life's not perfect, but I don't get overawed by potentially nasty things looming in the future. I just don't go there. It feels amazing, and every day, how you're 6 years now.
Yeah, yeah.
I know, like it's a bit of a cliche, but it honestly doesn't get boring waking up on a Saturday feeling sober, does it?
It never
Years and
does.
years pass, and I still wake up and think, oh, this is so good.
I think for me, it's the feeling of being more stable because I was so unstable before,
Mm. Yeah.
unstable. God, grammar. Tell I come from Croydon. Unstable because my emotions were all over the place. And you mentioned earlier that about ADHD, right? And here's a buzzword. Um, oh, I've probably got ADHD. But what I've experienced, especially in the last year or two, is that more and more people are coming to me with the same symptoms. And I do think there's a huge connection with addiction and ADHD. And I'm wondering myself, was that's what started me off when I was younger, as well as what happened. You know, you say you had quite an idyllic childhood, which goes to show you don't always have to have, you know, trauma in your life. But my symptoms are pretty classic and they're actually getting worse. And I don't know if that's because I'm getting older, but it's my capacity to read is horrific. Like I buy, but my book collection is incredible, but I will pick one up. I bought one about 3 months ago and I still haven't read more than 2 chapters.
Yeah.
But I want to read the bloody thing because I want to educate myself. But I end up downloading the audio book and listening, then reading, listening and reading. My concentration, like there's times in the day that I have zero concentration, yet there's other times I've got full, you know, I can crack something out really quickly.
Yeah.
You know, the overthinking, you know, me waking up at silly o'clock and my brain is switched on straight away. That's still the same, even though I don't drink now, you know. But I don't need a diagnosis. I try and manage it. That's how I deal with it.
Same here. I'd like to get a diagnosis. I'm undiagnosed. I'd like to get a diagnosis just for my daughter, really, because it can be genetic. Well, it is. But I agree, as I get older, the symptoms of that are actually in trying to manage my day-to-day life getting worse and worse. Thank God I'm sober. And it's just all that my life has been one relentless pursuit of dopamine.
Yeah.
All the time, gambling, sex, masturbating, drinking, drugs, chocolate, sugar, anything. And luckily, I've eradicated the one thing that was ruining everything. And now I'm just left with it. Yeah. But it's heavy to live like that. It's intense. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to manage it the best you can. But the best thing you can do is somehow get sober, and the correlation is evident out there. You know, just how can you not be addicted to things if you've got ADHD? You know, if everything's so accessible and easy to get.
Yeah, I mean, online shopping, you know, like most people struggle with the whole Amazon thing. You know, like you can search something up, find it, order it, wait for the delivery. You know, it's that whole sort of reward thing, isn't it?
Instant gratification everywhere.
Well, it's everywhere, isn't it? And the other thing I was going to say to you as well was, you know, when you stop drinking, but like it sounds like with your life, with your music and your whole lifestyle. Sometimes when we stop drinking, we get that sort of like, oh well, I do feel better, but the FOMO and whatnot, the fear of missing out. For me, one of the best things that happened for me was to finally accept that nothing is comparable to drinking. But I used to try and do things to get the same dopamine. So it could be, you know, I've climbed a couple of mountains, or I go off and do something sport-wise that would be extreme and stuff. And it's like, it's not giving me the same hit. And once I realized, actually, you know what I said about my DNA? It's like my DNA and alcohol clicked perfectly. It was seamless. I kind of come to the terms with myself that there's nothing like that. And once I come to terms with it, I let it go.
Wow. That's interesting, isn't it? It's almost an acceptance that it can't get any better.
Yeah.
So it has to go.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I've got other metaphors around it, but it's just accepting that I will never find anything like that ever again. But this is a personal thing. I'm not suggesting that other people try and use it, but for me, it worked for me. And it's like I was searching. So I was always getting let down. I was letting myself down constantly. It's like, well, that's not working. And then I started feeling negative about it, thinking, well, you know, I really like that feeling of the dopamine hit, and I can't find anything And that started to lead me down a bit of a negative path of like,
Yeah.
well, you know, maybe I need to revisit. And that's when I thought, no, it was a one-off, and that period of time in my life is gone, and let it go now. And it was cutting that umbilical cord almost of like, flying, my pretty, fly. And then I started to simplify my life more, like look for the smaller things in life that could make me feel like gratitude. We all talk about
Yes.
gratitude lists, and we go, oh, bloody gratitude list, and oh, journaling. But it was these little things that actually made a difference when they all added up.
Same here for me. Exactly the same. And I was the first one at AA. There was a lady, a Glaswegian lady, but my mum's age, and she took me under her wing, and she said to me as I left the first meeting, she said, "Go and look into meditating." And I was like, "Meditating? Are you mad?" And it changed my life. And gratitude changed my life. And positive affirmations and talking to myself aggressively in a good way changed my life. And getting up every morning to go for a walk changed my life. So you can dismiss these things all you like. What you're dismissing is the secret to success, really. Because you talk about letting go. You can't let go. We don't just suddenly have the ability to let go. We have to practice letting go.
Mm,
And how do you do that? By meditating. By I've meditated 3 times and I don't like it, and I'm no good at it. Well, you've done it 3 times. You have to do it for 3 months.
mm.
And when you start to implement positive daily practices on repeat consistently every day, you'll get sober if you want it enough.
Mm.
Because you have to want it, don't you? If you don't want it, you crack on. Drink as much as you like. You have to want it.
It's a bit like what you
Really want
said
it.
about, sorry, mate. It's a bit like what you said about AA as well, right? Because, I know so many people that still nowadays, they kind of, that's the default thing to do. If you're trying to get sober, right? I need to go to AA. And there are so many other options available, as we know now.
Yeah,
But you go to AA and you go to 2 or 3 meetings, and like I got wooed by the atmosphere of the church, and I love churches. Even now, I'll go into a church and light a candle and sit there for half an hour, and I find it really tranquil and peaceful. But then it stopped working for me, and there was an occasion, I think after 4 or 5, that someone said something to me. I felt a bit shamed, and I wanted to go for a drink because I felt shamed, and I left forever. I'm never going back there and whatnot. So I found community somewhere else, and that worked for me because it felt more normal for me. It was like an event in East London, and it was just like a normal, like some talks and alcohol-free
yeah.
drinks or soft drinks and that. And I met a few people then that I'm still really good friends with now. But I found like communication, mixing with like-minded people, being able to tell your story without feeling shamed. The connection was so important for me in my sobriety.
And like if you compare that to what you'd had before in terms of trying to soothe yourself and recover, you'll have had none of that before, will you? Before you went to AA, it gave you a taste of what community and support could be like. And you do need a bit of time to work out if AA is for you. And I found it wasn't for me. I found it very negative. Everyone, it was the wallowing in the war stories of drinking. And I was like, I don't want to be involved in this. I want it to be positive, and
Yeah.
because that is my nature, optimistic, hyper optimistic. And then you go for a coffee with them, and they're all talking about, oh, when I was drinking, I was like, I want to reshape my future. I don't want to talk about the past now. We've done that in the meeting, and the negativity of it, and step forward with a higher power, which I didn't interpret the right way, and I was done, and I was gone,
Mm.
and I needed connection elsewhere. And luckily, when I moved to Tenerife and had a new group of teachers around me, I got that. Because I don't know about you, when I went back to work 5 weeks sober in Seville, I was telling every man and his dog that I was quitting drinking
Mm.
because I needed people to be looking out for me. I needed people to know that I was serious about it, that if I did have a drink, I needed someone in my ear. No, think about it. Don't do that. And I'm very open, oversharer, you know. I was just going and telling anyone, all right, nice to meet you. What's your name? Gary, I'm 5 weeks sober. If you see me in the bar later, take it out of my hand.
I'm the same, mate. I literally is like coming out the closet when I gave up drinking. It was like, within minutes. I thought I've got to do it that way, but I know people would do it the other way, where they just need to be on their own.
Mm.
But I think, going back to AA, I think it's brilliant for people who like structure. They could have been in the forces or in a national health or whatever, where they like the structure,
Yeah.
So I think it's about, I always say, mate, it's like, say you and me had a day out shopping in Manchester or something, and I'm all excited. I say, right, let's go in this shop. They've got some brilliant stuff in there. And you walk in and go, well, it's all right, but not really my thing. Let's have a look in my shop. And I'll go in there and I'll feel the same. It's very bespoke, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think people should try a little taste of all of it. You've got smart recovery, you got AA, you got one-to-one coaching. There's lots of different things available now. And I'm similar to you, where one of my meetings, there was a woman in there, old lady, probably in her 80s, and she'd been every day for a meeting for 35 years, telling the same story in that, but labeling herself as an alcoholic. And I thought, I want to start moving away from that label because I don't like it. And I am a human being and I've got a personality outside of drinking. So although we talk about alcohol a lot now, it's not always war stories. It's more about the positive aspects of not drinking. And that's how I look at it, is like, I want to encourage people that there is a completely different life out there without it. But for standing up every day and saying I'm an alcoholic, and that was just felt negative for me.
Same here. I wanted to drop the long-term moniker, and I call my on Instagram, I say former alcoholic, and I get a lot of grief over that. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Oh, so I'm not allowed to have. I'm not allowed 10 years hard work, redemption, restructuring of my life, improving my life and others around me, and I've still got to call myself that when it was, it was another decade. I don't identify with that person whatsoever. So I needed shot of that tag soon, quite quickly as well. And I needed to bathe in positivity and seeing the good that could come from the future. Because I think I'm sure you'll agree with me. You honestly don't believe there is another world out there when you're drinking, do you? Because you've got so much fear around attempting to ingratiate yourself into a new world that I think you block out its even existence. I didn't believe for a minute that there was as much fun and joy and clean, pure experience out there as there actually was. I had no idea.
I didn't want to believe it because I didn't want to stop. It was only till the end that it was almost like my body was screaming out for help. And it's like, Dave, you can't do it anymore. What, like you're going to end up in the ground soon. That I actually started looking at it. And this is, I've done a recent post, and it's a very subtle way of bashing the trolls, because one of my posts has gone a bit viral and the abuse I'm getting is unbelievable off this one post. And I'm not preaching, or I try not to preach, but in a way, I used to be like that anyway. Because when I was drinking, I was the most judgmental person ever. Well, you're fucking boring, and what's the point of that? I go into an house and there would be a bottle of wine, which would be have an eighth of the bottle of wine left with a cork stopper in, and go, what's the point of that? And then I used to go to the extreme. Oh, I clean my teeth with more wine than that. And, all this rubbish that would come out of my mouth. And open up a fridge where they say, help yourself to tea, and get the milk, and there's no beers in the fridge. And I go, oh, purist. So I kind of understand where it comes from.
Yeah.
So I try and remind myself of what I was like. But I think out of anyone, I was the most surprised when I did stop drinking of how actually good it was. Because I'll give you an example, Gary. It's like even like I've just done a tax return and I saved for my tax bill. Right. And to a lot of people to go, well, why wouldn't you? I never
Yeah.
used to save for anything.
No.
Like I was the most, all I was concerned about was like in the old days, you would pay a lot by cash, wouldn't you?
Mhm.
Draw some money out, have some pound notes, because I knew with a card, I would just buy the whole club a drink because you don't see the money, do you?
No.
Yeah, the amount of times I've woken up and you've looked on your app and oh my God, I don't remember even being in that bar when it comes up on
Yeah,
your
yeah.
app.
Just,
So there are so many benefits, but I think I didn't realize until I stopped how many there would be.
but it's really important that, and I would have been like you years ago. I'd have been like, you absolute wet ass. You know, what you're drinking? Water. You know, I'd be appalled at it. But I think it's important for people like yourself and myself who were like that, that can now, not like you say, not preach, but you know, we're quite forthright people. We have to tell people, because if the ones that were the most likely to criticize healthy, clean living people can become what we've become, people need to listen.
Absolutely, mate.
People need to drop the bravado and the bullshit, because like you might be right in that, but I know you don't think that, because I would have written that comment, but deep down when I've been in bed, I wouldn't have really wanted to have written it. I'd have been hating myself. So I treat it with, I try and I'm the same. I've had a few things that go viral, and when things go viral, there's no context, is there? Because they've not seen the rest of your account, so they
No,
don't know your message, so they just assume you're X, Y, or Z.
yeah,
And I've had a couple that have gone big, and the nonsense that people write, you know. Luckily, it doesn't bother me. It bothers my missus more than it bothers me. But sadly, these are the people that need our help, probably.
absolutely, mate. I did a talk recently and I heard a couple of blokes say, well, I don't know why I'm even here. I've got too much to do, fucking listening to him going on about his drinking and that. And then afterwards, I said, look, I'm going to be in the office for the rest of the afternoon if you want to come see me. And both these blokes come and saw me individually
Mm.
because the story rang true with them, you know, and
Yeah.
luckily they felt able to talk about it. But so tell me about your relationship then, because you said your boozing split you and your now wife up.
Yeah,
What
partner. But yeah,
partner? Oh, I slipped there then, eh?
no, no,
She'd
you're
be,
right.
she'd be
It
going,
will
oh,
happen.
hello, is there a little box in the bedside drawer?
Not. I'm only saying that partner because she'll go, "Oh, you didn't make out that you've not asked me to marry you yet."
Oh,
um, yeah. So we met, and we were both very disillusioned with life in the UK, and we ran away. And I thought that would fix all my problems. And then you get to Spain, and you realise a beer is 150 euros. I mean, I knew that before I went. I'd been to Malaga plenty of times on the piss, but you know, when you realise, and we had decent enough teaching jobs, so there's disposable income there, and there was just no way it was going to end well because she was a party girl, and my behaviour just kind of unravelled over a sort of 3 or 4 month period. I think I was almost close to being done, and I couldn't handle it. So I was becoming aggressive, like verbally, and just being just a piece of shit to be around. Um, so when she moved back to England, I was kind of just left, and quite rightly, you know, on the floor really. So I drank after we broke up. I drank for another 9 months, but the day I decided, the day I had my last drink in Granada when my flip flop broke, I finally got my phone charged, and she was the person I rang. No one on the planet knew me better. And she said, "Come home, just admit defeat." I said, "I can't come home. I'm not going back to England with my tail between my legs. I'm going to get sober." And she'd send me letters and cards. And when I hit 30 days, I'd get something in the post. And she'd make fake little AA chips for me and put them in letters.
oh,
And, you know, incredible considering what she'd been through with me. And we always stayed in touch. And I spent years, you know, I'd be making a coffee 5 years later, and suddenly I'd think, why am I not with Gabby? How did I fuck that up? I just
Mm.
couldn't believe it for years. And we always stayed in touch. And then during COVID, she contacted me out of the blue one night. And I was, COVID we're in lockdown in Spain, got a text message. I booked a flight and I've not been back to Spain since. I just came home on a whim out of nothing. But I'm like that. I'm spontaneous. I do things on a whim. I take risks. And she said, why don't you just come and hang out for a couple of weeks and see if we've still got it? And I would say she picked me up at Luton Airport, and by the time we got back to her flat, I thought, yeah, I'm staying. I knew
Oh,
straight away because we're meant to be together. So yeah, she was the one that saw me at my worst, picked me off the floor, stabilized me, gave me that support when I had no one around, and some things are meant to be. Now we've got a 3-year-old daughter. She has an 8-year-old from a previous relationship. The 8-year-old's dad lives. This is interesting, right? When I came back to England, I met her daughter's dad. I've turned up out of the blue. Suddenly I'm in her life. He could have thought, hold on a minute. And it was a weird time because it was COVID. But because I was sober, I was able to converse with him like an adult. And we realized we liked each other. So we didn't make a drama out of it.
yeah.
I was living with his daughter and he was amazing from the off. And then when we moved to the coast, he came with us because he didn't want to be apart from his daughter. So like he lives 6-minute walk away, and him and I are like, I don't even see him as a friend. It's more like he's a family member.
Mm.
We've just got this 5-person unit that works. And there's no way that could have existed if I'd still been drinking. There'd have been jealousy or, paranoia or, aggressive conversations. So it just goes to show anything is possible if you're sober.
And do you put that down to like being more trustworthy?
My, Me trusting of other people.
Both, really, because when I was drinking, I was paranoid. I was really paranoid. I was really judgmental. My life was so small, I couldn't see outside
Mm.
the box.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. But also for the partner, someone coming back from Spain, like a complete pisshead, coming back to then be part of his daughter's life
Mm.
is not the ideal beginning, is it? But if you're sober,
Yeah.
there's that trust element.
Yeah, because I think he thought, Gary from Spain, him.
Mm.
And then maybe he met me, and obviously I was sober, and it would have been, it's probably hard to imagine what I was like back then. So, yeah, I trusted people better. I trust people until they break my trust. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm
Yeah.
like my default setting is I'm going to trust you until you prove it otherwise. Um, so yeah, he instantly knew that his daughter was safe around me. I mean, I looked like a bum. I had hair down to my chin, and all tanned, and looked like a right layabout. But I think inherently he could see that I was a decent bloke. But these are the things, how easy do you want your life to be?
Mm.
If you want it to be easy, you have to get sober. And life's not easy. It's never easy. I've had so many things in the last 10 years that have been difficult to cope with, but I've just dealt with them because nothing is as bad as getting sober. I caveat that by obviously, you know, illnesses that are going to take your life and blah, blah, blah. I'm not stupid. I don't mean it like that. But generally speaking, sobriety is the answer, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
Like, how different's your life now?
oh, it's. I've always said it's like polar opposite of when I was drinking. Literally polar opposite. And what I said just now about it being so small is that I was almost living in our blocks of. I feel so horrendous now. And I never used to have a hangover, but I think I was just used to feeling shit all the time.
Yeah.
So I would have the whole morning thing, the dehydration, the not looking at customers in the eyes, and the misery and the irritability, to then bit of lunch, to seeing a bit of twinkle in the end of the day coming, like, oh God, I've only got 2 or 3 hours. And then I go shopping, go home, put Pink Floyd on my headphones, start drinking like a lunatic, and then start again. So yeah, I never looked past that really. And now I look at next year, and how can I improve on what I'm doing now? And,
Mm.
like self-development. I'm going on a course in April. Like I'm constantly looking at self-development. It's never ending for me. But it's my general contentment is right up there. Like wake up every single day feeling content is you can't buy that.
No, you can't. And content's the more important word. It's not happiness, because these are fleeting, unique peaks of enjoyment, happiness. But
Mm.
contentment is what you need to, because your life's carnage when you're drinking. There's no contentment ever. I mean, ever really. I never felt content. I felt anxious, stressed, hungover, drunk, angry, wound up, irritable, you name it, but I never felt content
Mm.
ever. And now I've realized my baseline generally is one of contentedness. And that alone is the reward, isn't it? Like being sober. Do you want to be content? Yes. Okay. There it is. Go for
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. It's true.
Because if you're
Now,
content, you've not got this worry that takes up all the rest of your time and the energy thought about to think about drinking. So you've just got more time to work on being content, haven't you?
it clears the bandwidth, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because even if you're trying to moderate, it's in your head. Oh, I drank last night. If I'm trying to moderate, it means I shouldn't drink tonight. Or if I go out, I just have two. Moderation annihilates your bandwidth in your head. So for me, it was like I've got to get it out. You know, I've always said moderation is a bit like dumping your toxic ex and sleeping with them at the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they're never going to be out of your life, right? Because
No.
you always and that's what moderation is like to me. It's like I need it out of my life. I need to cut the ties now and move on, and that's how I dealt with it.
Because moderation is an impossibility. It's not like, a pipe dream that I might just one day grasp. It's not possible. The second you start moderating is the second you need to admit it.
Well, I think we have caveat that for people that haven't got a problem, moderation is possible. I think once you develop a problem, it's impossible. And this
But
is why it annoys me with people who have courses out there. One of them's just done a podcast with someone quite big talking about I can train you to moderate. And there's a book out there by a TV presenter that is trying to teach you to moderate. And all I see there is pound notes because every person I've talked to developed a problem with alcohol can't moderate. They try and they might last a month, but it ramps up. And in the end, it ends up the same, if not worse.
because you put that intolerable amount of pressure on yourself. It's pressure on yourself. So when you break and you succumb and you have a drink, you're back to square one, and it's this perpetual misery, isn't it? The
Mm.
thing about it's right what you said about the people that don't drink. For example, take my mum. Right, my mum will drink 2 glasses of red wine on a Saturday night twice a month. I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing here, but like based on knowing her very well, she'll have one gin and tonic here. She'll go for a meal. She'll have a glass of red wine. On a sunny afternoon in the pub, she'll have like half a Stella. But my mum doesn't know what moderating is because she doesn't need to. So like the
Mm.
word moderating only exists in the mind of people who know they've got some kind of problem.
Mm.
My mum's not going, oh, I'll just moderate tonight. My mum goes, oh, I'll just drink
Yeah,
one or
that's
two.
normal for her, isn't it?
That's just the normal drinking behavior. But the second you're like trying to, oh, maybe I shouldn't drink on Sat, that's when you need to have a look at yourself.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really great way of putting it. And it's like with gambling, I don't care if I never gamble ever again. So I always compare the two. Like I might say, you said to me, "Oh, there's a horse running Saturday. Put 100 quid on it, and I won a grand." I wouldn't automatically go, "Oh God, I'm going to go to the betting shop again on Tuesday, or I'm going to download the bloody roulette table app on my phone or whatnot." I'd just think, "Oh, that's a touch," and I probably wouldn't gamble for another 5 years.
Yeah,
And
that's
so it's
impressive.
yeah, I've never had a problem with that. But I can see what you're saying there. But it's just a nightmare. We could talk forever about it, mate.
Yeah.
Let's start rounding it off. So well done on your 11 years this year, mate. And thank you for being such a great guest. If there's anything you would want to say to someone listening to this and they kind of resonate with anything we said, or they're beginning to explore their own relationship with alcohol, what would you say to them?
I would say if it's one of those situations where you know deep down it's spiraling, who are you trying to kid? Really? Because you're not kidding anyone that witnesses it. You have to stop kidding yourself. And if you think you might have the slightest problem, you've got no idea how much support and help is out there. You know, in the social media and the internet is awash with tips and advice and inspirational things and people. But stop kidding yourself. If it's creeping into your head on a Saturday afternoon because you did something on Friday that you're still ashamed of 8 hours later, and you've done that 2 or 3 times ever, you need to take a long hard look at yourself. I'd also say, do you know that it's poison? Like, who's this famous person trying to tell people to moderate? What, moderate poison?
Mm.
Or just drink a little bit less poison. I just think people have to get real. This is a bit aggressive, but people have to just get real.
I think you're just being passionate, because what I learned when I stopped drinking was the science behind it. And I listened to a lot of podcasts around the science, and it is a poison. And one of the most frightening things I've heard recently is there's 30 to 40% of attempted suicides are influenced by alcohol. And also, 7 types of cancer that
Yeah,
you
I
can
didn't know
get
that
alone
recently.
off of alcohol. And also, if you've had breast cancer, the chance of reoccurrence if you drink alcohol is 28% more. I went to a charity event a few years ago, a big branded charity event where there was a free bar,
Yeah.
and they were talking about cancer a lot, stories and whatnot. And then afterwards, the bar was packed with people drinking, and I was like, this is just mad. Like, and I think Ireland and Australia, that they're hopefully aim at putting labels on bottles and that, but we're on it everywhere, don't we? Like the cigarettes and just the warnings to make you think twice, maybe, about drinking. And that's what I'm passionate about, without sounding like I'm on a soapbox being judgmental. It's fact, it's actual scientific knowledge now.
Yeah, yeah. It's take our content as you wish, but you can't argue with science. That's a very good point about the science, though. I would, if you're planning on quitting, get to know the science. And I don't mean
Mm,
just the science of what it does to your body. What about the cravings and the triggers? And
mm,
how long should you feel like shit? And how long will it take your liver to recover? Because all these, like, if you arm yourself with enough knowledge, the cravings start to make more sense, don't they?
yeah,
If you don't know
yeah.
anything about the science, you just think, oh, I need a drink, so I'm going to have one. But if you think, hold on a minute, this might pass in 10 or 15 minutes, what can I do to distract myself? That's science helping you.
Yeah. Education, knowledge, it really helped me after I knew about even dopamine, getting understand how dopamine works,
Yeah.
like the buzz you get from the first drink, but you're not the same after 4 drinks. You could be really like happy and over the top within the first 2 or 3, and then you can get a bit emotional. And I love you, Gary. You're like a brother. And then 7 drinks later, I'm like, oh, you're getting on my fucking nerves, mate. What's the matter with you? And then start pushing like you get aggressive, and then you get really tired, and you're, all woozy, and then you pass out. It's the different stages as well that are interesting. And I think getting an overall picture of what the drug does to us physically and emotionally is really powerful tool, actually.
100%. If the more knowledge you have, then the more explanations you have for behaviors and emotions and feelings around it. And one thing I'd add, maybe a softer answer to your question is, what would I say to people? Don't underestimate how much you can change your life in 6 to 8 weeks. No matter how down and out you feel, no matter how long you've been drinking or how massively it's negatively impacted your life, in 6 to 8 weeks, you can turn it all around.
Mm. That's brilliant. That's brilliant because, and really, when you think about it, it's such a small amount of time to be able to do that when you've had years. I mean, mine was 4 decades.
Yeah.
Within a month, I noticed so many things. My blood pressure had gone down, my weight had gone down, my mental health was better. I had reduced anxiety. There were so many signs within a month.
Yeah.
It's almost like a magic solution, isn't it? You've just got to get through the first bit, which is the hardest, but you can make it easier by meeting the right people, finding the right resources, and having the right mindset as well. You know, positive mindset rather than
woe
this
is
is
me.
miserable. You know, and yeah, it's a brilliant way to end the podcast, mate. And I'm truly grateful for you joining me today, and well done for everything you're doing as well.
Thank you very much, and likewise, you're a leading light, and
Thank you,
you'll
mate.
be helping a lot of people. We're doing good things, and I sleep well at night.
Yeah.
Because of Sober and Sound and because of what Craig and I do. I sleep well at night because I know I'm doing my bit. And that was the thing. Sorry, just to finish off. When I was drinking, I was disgusted at the lack of goodness I was leaving in the world.
Yeah.
I didn't contribute positively to anything or anyone really. But now, purely because I'm sober, I'm able to, positively impact maybe someone's morning for 5 minutes or help someone get sober. That just makes me sleep well at night.
Mm. Brilliant, mate. Thank you very much. And they can find you on Instagram, Sober and Sound.
They can indeed, yeah. And then Craig and I have got our podcast, The Sober Stretch. Craig, very similar to me. He just messaged me out of the blue, and yeah, just two lads telling it like it is. So both those accounts are on Instagram.
Wonderful, mate. And I want to say a big thank you to all my listeners as well that continue to support this podcast. As I say, it's been right up there in the charts every week. Thanks to all my wonderful guests. And I'll be back soon in a few weeks with a whole new collection of wonderful guests. But for the meantime, Gary, thank you, mate. Have a great day and see you soon.
You too, likewise. Take care. Thanks a lot.